Hi folks, today I'm talking about how I got my start in music. Sit tight, I'll tell you about some people that got me started. Um, I guess it was maybe back in 1950 something. And when I grew up, my dad was always listening to music, big band jazz, blues, what they called back then, doo-wop, soul, and all that. But what I always heard was the music, especially the bass. Fast forward a little bit to say 68, I was listening to his albums as well as everything that came out. And then one day in 1969, a buddy of mine that I had been playing with in a band, his name was Artie Poré. He was a drummer. He was years ahead of me. And he said, "You need to start playing music. Get an instrument and play music." And Artie was a drummer. And Artie was good. And he took the time to come over with his drum set and just, sit and play in front of me. And I didn't even have a bass or an instrument for that matter. So all my friends that I used to hang out with, they went and, their parents could afford to buy them instruments, pawn shop guitars, and they all got guitars. And I wanted one so bad. And my parents could not afford a guitar. And somewhere along, early 1969, I was bugging them so bad, I almost got butt whoopings because I was bugging them. I want a bass. Oh no, I didn't want a bass. I just wanted a guitar. And I had met this guy. I grew up with him from kids because his father was one of my father's best friends. And he wanted to play drums, and he made good at it. He was getting good. I didn't even know how to play. And I bugged my parents so bad. So bad. And they blew it off. So one day Artie came to me and he said, "Motown Revue is coming to the Fox Theater." And this was, I believe, in November 1969. And now I've been listening to Motown since 1963, 64. And all I listened to was the bass. Didn't know anything about the bass player. I just knew I loved the bass. Loved it when he listened to Jackie Wilson. Loved the bass when he listened to the Duke Ellington bands and Count Basie and, the Chess Record stuff, Etta James, Muddy Waters. It was always the bass. They got me. And finally, they bought me a ticket because I bugged them. And I remember I went to that show at the Fox Theater, Motown Revue. And I went with a friend of mine. We turned out to be brothers. And he lived down the street from me. And, his big brother was into the music. And, we financed tickets somehow through our parents. And we went to the Fox Theater. And that's when I first seen James Jamerson, the man himself, playing bass live on stage at the Fox Theater. It was at that point that I decided all my friends got guitars. I want a guitar. I want a bass guitar. So I bugged him, and finally on my birthday in 1970, they blessed me with a $50 bass guitar and a $50 amplifier. However, I didn't know that they had put off the mortgage and everything just to shut my mouth. But they did. And they said, "I don't know what you want this for, boy. You ain't gonna never do nothing with it." They ended up proud of me. But, carry on with the story. They bought me this bass, and there was some guys that lived around the corner from me. One of them's name was Gerald Butler. He was sort of, a movement activist type guy, but he played flute and he could arrange music. The other guy was a guitar player named Aaron Gleaton, and he was already doing pretty well, at playing guitar. They were playing all the, the radio music that was out, and the bass player, I know he had a sister that everybody really liked. And I can't remember his name right now, but he loaned me his amp, and I promptly blew some tubes in it, turning it up too loud, and my parents had to pay for that too. But he wasn't mad at me. He just said, I want my amp fixed. And my parents was like, we'll get your amp fixed. Because he had a big amp. He had a Vox. And that's what all the stars were using, the Beatles, and everybody was using Vox equipment. And here I am still with this $50 bass. Which one I got, I didn't even know how to tune. Gerald Butler tuned it for me, taught me about tuning. And me and Artie Porre and this guy, his name was Jack Young. He was messing around on the guitar, but he didn't really have no ambition for it, so he soon quit. And me and Artie Porre, we kept jamming, and then he found another band. And he was better than I was. I mean, he was a drummer that, he had his shit together, man. But I don't know how it happened and how we met, but I met this other group of cats, which they called them cats back in the day, because that's what my dad called them. That's what their dad, that's what everybody's dad called musicians, these cats. Anybody listening to music, it was like, these cats is bad. These cats is, I don't know how I met these guys exactly. I don't remember. We were somewhere. And there was a guy named Roy Swartz, brother of mine to this day. And he had a band together with these two brothers. They were Bennett and Larry Bean. And I really didn't know him, but I got a call and said, we want you to play bass. And I didn't know how good they were because I had never heard them, but they were playing everything, they were learning everything that was out there. I mean, upscale from War, Chicago, down to Sly Stone, all these groups that I was listening to and seeing on TV programs. We finally got together, and the Bean Brothers had an older sister. Her name was Tamiko Jones, and she already had albums out. She was a famous jazz singer, and she took an interest. She bought a drum set for the band, and it turned us on to like all these musicians like Bernard Purdy and everything that we didn't, we weren't listening to, but we started listening to. And then, groups like Earth, Wind and Fire started getting into our, our heads and stuff. And long about, I would say, 1971, we found out about this place called the Metro Arts Complex. And that was a city-funded program where kids, the city would pay kids to get off the street and go down here. If you had talent or you thought you had talent or you wanted to learn talent, you can go do that at this place. And the city paid us to do it. $76 every 2 weeks just to stay off the street during the summer and go down there and do what you did, hone your craft. There, the mentors, and I mean, big guys, Harold McKinney, Marcus Belgrave, Sam Sanders. These were all the big guys in Detroit. Heath Holly, they mentored us. They kept us off the street and they said, as long as you come here, we will teach you. So, me, Roy Swartz, Bennett, and Larry Bean formed a band. And it wasn't only that, it was that our parents made sure if this is what you're going to do, you're going to do it. And we're going to make sure you do it. If this is not what you're going to do, you're not going to waste your time. You're going to, you're going to get your education, get a job, and do whatever. We didn't disappoint. Because pretty soon, Metro Arts had us playing all over the place. They used to have a program in the city called the Bandwagon, where they would take a band, pull a trailer up, open the trailer up, the band would set up and play a set in a neighborhood. Then they would go to a different neighborhood, and we did this all over and over again. Pretty soon, our band started getting recognition. And I remember it got to the point when we were teenagers. We were just turning 16, and we got a gig at the 20 Grand. That's right, the 20 Grand, where the Motown stars played. They had a room called the Gold Room. The Motown stars were up in the Gold Room, and my little childhood band was in the basement, playing for those that had children, just youth. But we were in the 20 Grand. And, the Temptations, the Supremes, Martha and the Vandellas, everybody would be right upstairs. And with our little sneaky asses, we tried to sneak up the stairs, and we got caught every time. That's the first time I ever seen Smokey Robinson, David Ruffin, Eddie Kendricks, Martha Reeves. Matter of fact, I even seen Diana Ross. Couldn't talk to him because we were peeking around a corner when they were getting out of their cars and going to do their shows. But their bands were so loud and so tough. And we were such small amateurs. But we had all the young people down there listening to us with other young musicians. After that, we started playing places like the Latin Quarters, which was another prominent, pretty big club on Grand Boulevard. And we got some gigs there. We were playing War, and then we'd switch off to playing Chicago. Then we'd switch back off to playing like Motown songs and everything. And we pretty soon got noticed. But this is to pay homage to the guys that got me started. The first real band I ever had, Roy Swartz, Bennett Bean, Larry Bean, and myself. And with the help of our parents, we made them proud. And here I am, over 50 years later. I had a good career. Never made it famous, but I made a lot of money. I jumped into rock, moved to another country for a while, but I never forgot those guys, because if it wasn't for them, I would have never been able to do anything that I've really done. I pay homage to them. I just want to give them a shout out. Them 4 names. And there's other guys that, pushed me along. And I call them my mentors. But the number one man that inspired me to play bass was James Jamerson. Then came, Bootsy Collins. When I first seen him playing with James Brown, I didn't know who James Brown's bass player was until I seen this guy with an afro. And he was just killing it. And of course, Larry Graham, I ain't got to talk about him. Everybody knew about Sly Stone. When they started coming out with their stuff, I got totally lost. I got to psychedelic and we all did. But we're all still musicians to this day. And I got God to thank, and I have, like they say, them cats to thank for it. Think about it. Thank them for it. Some Canadian musicians I was with. One of my best friends, Kevin Larson, rest his soul. was one of the best creative guys I ever knew when we was playing hard rock. Thing is, I never quit playing bass, and I still haven't quit playing bass. I'm still that guy, and it's still what I do. Along came the jazz era, and then I got into jazz with the help of a fabulous drummer by the name of Tim Harris, keyboardist by the name of Jan Max Aaron, if you ever heard of any of them. And some bad cats, man. Ray Richardson. You know, we were all Detroit musicians. We never went big fame, but we all made good on what we did and made our parents proud of us. My word out there is, if music is your child's life and that's what they want to do, back them up, support them, because they can surprise you. I help as many as I can. And I had many a good band. My band, Disguise, one of the best club bands in southeastern Michigan for 7 or 8 years. And all these guys came up from the same way I did. No formal schooling. Learn by ear, do by ear. And I'm a fan of all music. All music. And I hope that people will raise their children that want to be entertainers and musicians, will back them fully, because I back them. And there's so much young talent out here, putting this out here, that if I can do anything to help you, I will. I'm going to sign off because I got to go pick up that bass and do a little more practicing, because I got a recording session to do in a couple of days. See y'all later. Bye, y'all.